Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial I'll be sharing with you how I made this off-shoulder basque gown with a puffy sleeve. So if you haven't yet seen the drafting tutorial, please go down to my channel, or I'm going to leave the link at the description box. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting my channel. So let's start. So here is my pattern, and I've gone ahead to cut it out, and I added half-inch round. After cutting out the main fabric, you're also going to cut out the lining, and I went ahead to cut out wadding for this also. If you're making use of an already made cup, I'm going to be illustrating how to use an already made cup for this. So this is the centerpiece. I taped it together. So I'm making use of a Duchess material. Sorry, my voice is a little cracky at this part of the video. It is 60 inches by length. So after cutting out, I found out that it wasn't really enough. So when making yours, you should get about 3 to 4 yards of fabric. So I've gone ahead to also cut out the center part, and I added half-inch on it. And at my back part, at the front part of my zipper, I just added half-inch. So by the time I sew on it, I'm just going to have my zipper allowance. So I did add half-inch by the side of the back because I've already added my allowance. So this is my hairstay, and I'm just going to iron it on my fabric. So what I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and place hairstay to the wrong side of my fabric, and I'm going to iron and cut out. So there are two types of hairstay, the light and the one that is a bit thicker. So you should go for the one that is a bit thicker to avoid having issues when ironing it. So after ironing hairstay to my dress, this is what I have, and we're going to start joining this pattern. And also at the back, I went ahead to iron hairstay to the fabric. The next step I'll take is to take the lining piece of the back, and I'm going to place on it, and I'm going to be stitching it with half-inch. So to stitch, you're going to start by the side, and you're going to stitch the upper part also this way with half-inch, and you're going to turn it up from the lower part, and you're also going to repeat the same process for this side also. So the right side of the fabric is facing the right side of the fabric, and you're just going to stitch with half-inch round it this way. So moving over to the cup part of my pattern, so I cut out wadding for this pattern, and just like I said, I'll be illustrating how to use an already made cup, but I'll be doing that with the lining part of this cup part of my dress. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate my cup for joining, and I'm going to pick one side of my cup B, and I'm also going to take the wadding and I'll place it. So when placing, make sure if you're using a wadding, make sure the shiny part is facing the wrong side of the fabric. And I'll go ahead to pick up my cup A, and I'm going to go ahead to separate it also. I'm just going to pick out one part of the cup. Now I'll go ahead to also pick the wadding, place the shiny part underneath it, and I'm going to be joining it. So I'll go ahead and iron it to it. After ironing, I'm going to place and join with half-inch at this side. So I'm done joining the cup for this part, and this is what I have. And on the other side of the cup, I'll be repeating the same process just like I did for the other side. I'm going to place the wadding underneath it, so I have an excess at that point, and I'll just go ahead to trim it off. After trimming it off, I'm going to place it with the other side, and I'm going to join with half-inch. For those that are using already made cup, I will be illustrating it with my lining piece. So after I'm done joining my cup, this is what I have at both sides. right now I'll be working on the lining piece. So for the lining piece, I went ahead to use a bridal satin just to show you the difference between a duchess and a bridal. Also, I'm going to be using this to attach my already made cup. I'll just show you how to attach an already made cup. So I'll just go ahead to place the cup together. So what you're going to do is to iron and interface it to your cup and stay to it. After ironing, you're going to go ahead to join it. I'm done joining the cup or the lining part of the cup. So now I'll be introducing my already made cup to it. So my bust size is 33 and I went ahead to buy 34 inches cup. So I'm going to make a dart at the center of my cup. Part of the dart is 3 inches and I'll go ahead to sew that on my cup. So after doing that, this is what I have and I'm just going to place it on it this way. So in order to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to use your hemming gum to attach it on it. But before you do that, you're going to iron this part of your cup flat. You're going to make sure it is sitting flat. You're going to iron it and it's either you attach your cup by sewing it on the sewing machine or you're going to use hemming gum to attach it on it. So to do that, you're going to place this and you're going to place your hemming gum on it this way. You're just going to cut it out and you're going to place your already made cup on it and you're going to go ahead to iron it. Iron it, you're going to use your tailor's ham. So if you don't have a tailor's ham, I have a video on how to do that. You can go ahead to learn how to make your own tailor's ham. So I'm just showing you an example of how to attach your already made cup to your fabric. So I'm not actually ironing it, I'm just showing you an example how you're going to do that. So after attaching it, this is what you're going to have and it's ready for you to attach it to the main fabric. Go ahead to continue with what I have and next I will be attaching the cup to the body of the corset, and to do that I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to find the middle at both sides. After folding it this way, I'll make sure it aligns at that part. So after doing it, I'll go ahead to give it a notch on that part. So I'll also repeat the same process for the other side. I'll go ahead to fold and I'm going to notch. So after I'm done notching it, this is what I have and I will be placing my cup to join it. So on that notch part, I'll be placing the center of my cup where I joined it to it and I'll go ahead to pin. So right now I'm going to be joining my cup with 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to place it this way. So if you find it very easy to join without pinning, you can go ahead to do that. But while pinning, if you notice that your cup is a little bigger than the space you have, you're just going to notch the body of the corset. So on the other part of the corset, I'm just going to notch the body. Please do not notch the cup, I mean the space that you have for the corset, and I'll go ahead to pin it down. So after pinning my cup round, this is what I have, and the next step I'll take is to go ahead to sew it with 1/2 inch round. So I'll start sewing from the back part with 1/2 inch round my corset this way. So before I go ahead to stitch the other side, I'm going to pin the other side of the cup, and whatever I do on the main fabric, I will be doing it on the lining also. I'm done stitching up my cup and this is what I have. So after doing that, I'm going to place the right side of my lining and the right side of my main fabric and I'm going to pin it down. So the next step is to stitch up these parts together. When pinning, make sure that your fabric and your lining aligns very well. So after I'm done pinning it, I'm just going to stitch with 1/2 inch round it this way. So here is my back pattern and I've gone ahead to stitch it round, and this is what I have. So the next thing I'll do now is to place it this way, and I'm going to be measuring out my zipper allowance. So next I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark out that 1 inch zipper allowance I have at the back. So after marking it, I'm going to go ahead to use a pin to hold that part, or you can just stitch it up and open it later. But I'm just going to go ahead and I will pin directly on that 1 inch mark that I made at the zipper allowance. This is to enable me shape the upper part of my dress. So after pinning it and I will open it, this is what it will be looking like. After I'm done stitching, I'll go ahead to give it a little notch round it. So there's another method whereby you push your allowance to the lining part, but for this I'm just going to notch it, and so that it's going to relax at the upper part of my dress. So after doing that, the next thing I'll do is just to turn it up to the right side. After turning it to the right side, I'll be introducing my tailor's ham, and I'm going to use it to iron this out. So I went ahead to heat up my iron because the ironing table is far, and I'm going to iron my cup so that it's going to sit very well. So next I will be introducing the back, and I'm going to shape it. So I'm going to place the right side of the corset at the front and the right side of the back together, and if, as you can see, it is aligning, and I'll just go ahead to pin it down with my pin at both sides. Now it's time to shape the corset, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my tape. I'm going to get my underbust, my shoulder to underbust point, which is 12 inches, and I'll place it at that underbust part. That's the part where you joined your corset from the underbust. I will make a mark at that point. So I'll place the tape and I will find my bust point, and I'll go ahead and mark. So after marking that, I'm going to go ahead to also mark my waistline at this point. I'll go over to the other side and I'll repeat what I did here. I'll place my tape, get my underbust point first, then place it back and I'll mark my bust point, and from there I'm going to measure my shoulder to waistline, which is 17 inches. After marking my waist point, I noticed that I have more than 1/2 inch, so that might be error while I was cutting out my fabric. So what I'm going to do right now is to reduce it, and to reduce that I'm going to mark 1/2 inch, that is the joining allowance at the lower part, and I'm going to fold my corset this way, and I'm going to go ahead to make sure it aligns before I can go ahead to trim out the excess. So I'll go ahead and pin it to avoid it from shifting. So after that I'll just go ahead to trim out the excess that I have by this side, and I'll go ahead and open up my pattern. So this is what I have, and I'll just go ahead to trim some little sides of the corset. First I'll start inserting my measurements, and I'm going to go ahead and place my tape at my bust line, and I'll make sure I measure out what I have at the bust exactly. So my bust circumference is 33 divided by 2. I have 16.5. So after I'm done measuring, I have 19.5 at this point. What I'm going to do is to minus the 16.5 from the 19, and after doing that I have 3 inches left. So I'm going to share that 3 inches into 2, which I will have 1.5 at both sides, and I will go ahead to mark it and then remeasure what I have. At my under bust, I'm going to measure what I have at that point.
At this point, after measuring, I have 16.5 and my underbust side circumference is 14. 16.5 minus 14, I have 2.5 inches, and I'm going to go ahead to share it. So after measuring that, I'll just mark my 14 inches at this point, and I'll connect it down to my bust point, and I'll also connect it to the other side. Going down to my waistline, I'm going to place, and after measuring, I have 15.5, and my waist circumference is 28 divided by 2. I have 14 inches. So I'll be minusing 15 inches minus 14.5. I have 1.5 inch left, and I will be dividing that. So I'll mark the other half at this point, and I'll mark my 14 inches. Then I have my allowance at both sides, and I will connect it to the upper part of my dress and draw a straight line. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead to stitch at both sides. So after stitching it, I'm just going to unpin the back and open it up. So this is what my corset is looking like at this point. Now it's time to introduce the lower part of this corset. The total length of my gown is 40 inches plus 2 inches allowance for folding, which is 42. For the 42 inches, I minus 17, which is my shoulder to waist line. So this additional 4 inches or 5 inches we added in front for our basque is not part of the measurement. So I'm just going to fold it this way to show you. So that is your shoulder to waist line, which is 17. Then I'll be minusing 42 minus 17. So the remaining part, I will be cutting it out. So there are two ways of cutting this. Is either you cut it out in form of a flay, but you're not going to actually use your waist measurement. Let's say your waist is 28, you're going to be using like 50 inches to cut out your waist. You're going to have enough to gather at your waistline. So, or you can just cut it out as a straight material. So I don't have enough fabric, so I went ahead to just cut it out straight, and I'm going to fold the lower part of the material. So after folding it to the end, what I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and I'll sew a gather stitch at the other end. So I've gone ahead to fold the lower part of my fabric, and after folding that, I folded my fabric into two, and what I'll do is to go ahead to notch the center. This will serve as a guide when I'm attaching it to the upper part, because I'll go ahead to run a gather stitch on this upper part. So after sewing a gather stitch, this is what I have, and what you're going to do is just to take one rope and you're going to drag it to create a gathers at the waistline. For the fabric at the lower part of my waistline, I have 2 yards, so you can go ahead to cut out up to 3 yards if you're cutting yours on a straight fabric. So remember that notched part, you're going to place it at the center when you're done gathering. So that's why I said it will serve as a guide when joining your dress. So after gathering it, this is what I have, and I'm just going to pin it before sewing with 1/2 inch to join the upper part and the lower part together. Before you start stitching, you want to make sure that what you have gathered on one side is enough for the upper part of that side. Now to stitch, you're going to flip it to the other side, and you're going to pin the notch part to the center of the upper part, and you're going to go ahead to pin it down. After pinning it down, you're going to just run 1/2 inch stitch to hold the upper part and the lower part together. After I'm done pinning it, I'll just go ahead to sew with 1/2 inch round and also pin the other side and sew. So this is what I have after I'm done sewing. I'll go ahead and flip it to the other side this way. So what I'm going to do right now is to stitch it up. So I'm just going to place this together, and I'm going to run a 1-inch stitch at the lower part. So from the waistline, I'm going to measure about 8 to 10 inches, any of your choice, and I'm going to attach my zip to the upper part. After I'm done attaching my zip, this is what I have, and the next step we're going to take is to go ahead to attach the sleeve. So for my sleeve, this is what I have, and this is 45 inches for the length and the width is 17 inches. So the actual width is 15 and I added 2 inches, which is 1 inch for creating an elastic case for my sleeve. So I'm going to do it at both sides. I'm just going to fold it with half and half. So the elastic I'm working with is actually a smaller one. So I'll just go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to go ahead to fold it up at both ends this way. So I've gone ahead to fold the upper part and the lower part of my sleeve just like I said, and the next thing we're going to do is to introduce our elastic band. So my elastic band is into two sides. So to measure it, you're going to measure first the one that will go around your armhole, and after measuring that you're going to measure where you want your puffy sleeve to stop and you're going to measure it round. So that's why I have two different sizes, and the size I'm using is 11 for the armhole side and 9 inches for where my sleeve is going to stop. The next thing I'm going to do is just to go ahead and pass my elastic, and after passing my elastic at the upper part, this is what I have, and I will do the same thing at the lower part. And don't forget to use your pin to secure the edges, if not your elastic is going to go out. So after passing the elastic at both ends, what I'm going to do is to go ahead and stitch it up with ½ inch. After stitching it up, I'm going to attach the sleeve, and this is what I have. I'll just go ahead. I'll be joining the sleeve to the side where I have the front and back, and also where I stitched up the sleeve. So I'll just go ahead and run a stitch at the upper part and just stop stitch and hold it. So I'll go ahead and repeat for the other side also. And this is my final look. With this we have come to the end of the tutorial. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and see you in my